Here are the basic steps to editing your video. Remember, no matter what application you're using, these are the steps that you should be doing. The first is more of not just a step, but something that you have to be aware of throughout the entire process, and that's organization. Even before you start filming, but especially after you stop filming and you bring that footage into your computer, importing onto your computer or to an external hard drive, you want to think about staying organized. I always have a similar folder structure for my video editing projects. So within one project folder, I'll have individual subfolders for footage, which includes more subfolders for each camera or each day that we shoot. Also, I'll have a folder for audio, for music, for graphics, for exports, and for sequences or projects. I often create a new project or save a new project every day or every couple of days so that I have the last one available if I want to revert back to it. I also have autosave turned on my application while I use Premiere Pro, but you can typically turn on autosave in most editing applications so that if it does crash, you do have that backup. And I keep that organization on my computer, whether it's on an external hard drive or on my computer itself. And I copy that organization inside the editing application as well. So when I bring in footage, when I bring in music, when I bring in photos, graphics, whatever it is into Premiere Pro, I keep a folder structure there as well that's the same, so that if I ever lose footage or misplace footage or need to add footage or move it around, I know exactly where I can find it, both in my project but also in my documents. So the key here is to stay organized. Now, the next step, once you have your footage organized on your computer, is to import it. Bring it into your application and organize it. Keep it organized. The next step depends on what type of video you're doing. But if you're recording something like what I'm doing right now, where I'm recording video, and perhaps what we were doing outside where we were recording with a lavalier mic and a webcam or a regular camera, you have to sync up your audio and video footage. This is matching the audio and the video so that what you're saying looks right. You want to make sure that the voice matches the lips. It'll look really awkward if it doesn't. One trick that I do, if you don't have a professional film slate, is that at the very beginning of recording or at the end as well, clap in front of the camera.
Section 1.2.
So that when you are editing and you see that clap, you'll also see the spike in the audio waveform. In most video editors, you actually see and you can expand the track on the timeline so that you see the waveform of audio, and you can match that up, move it around to match the visual claps. That's how you easily sync video and audio. After you've synced your footage, or if you didn't have to do that, the next step is to pull selects. This is pulling your best shots, your best takes, and getting it prepared for putting it together in the edit. What I'll typically do is I'll create a new sequence, which is basically a new video, a new timeline, and I'll just start taking the best clips from all of the takes that I've done and put it on there. Or if I have an interview or if I'm recording a class like this, I'll put the entire take, the entire recording, whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or sometimes I have interviews that are 3 or 4 hours, I'll put that all down on a timeline and then I'll just start cutting it up, keeping the bits that I like and deleting the bits that I don't like. Sometimes I'll also duplicate that timeline or that sequence as I go on so that if I have to refer back to what I was doing yesterday or the day before, or some of the takes that weren't as good, then I'll have that saved. And then my final take or my final sequence will only be the best takes. After you've pulled selects, it's time to do the edit. This is moving things around, building your story, making sure that the flow is good, the pacing is good, cutting out the ums and the ers. This is the fun part of editing. Well, really not the fun part. That was a little sarcastic, but a lot of people don't like editing. I actually like editing and have fun doing that. After you've put together your story with your main footage, the next thing is to add B-roll and graphics. So sometimes you might only have B-roll and not graphics. Sometimes you might just have graphics and not B-roll. But you put together your piece and you add that extra footage to make it even more interesting. So adding titles, if you've created graphics, you can add those, or the cutaway footage that adds to your piece. This might also be where if you're shooting something like a narrative film where you're cutting together different takes or different shots and matching it up. After that, it's all about tweaking and making it look and sound better. So adjusting audio levels to make sure that dialogue is relatively at the same level throughout, making sure there's nothing that's too loud or too soft, adding music and making sure that the music isn't too loud, changing up the music so that it adds emotion or drama or excitement or comedy or whatever feeling you want with your video. Also, affecting or adjusting the colors of your video. This is called color correction. And that encompasses all kinds of things, but including adjusting the exposure so that it's bright enough or not too dark. Also the white balance, so it's not too yellow or too blue or too green or too magenta. You want to have it look natural, make sure that the colors look natural. You can also, and there's another term called color grading, which sometimes people get confused by. It's different than color correction. Color correction is making sure that your video looks good, normal. Color grading is giving your video a style through those same techniques. So maybe making it dark or blue to make it look like nighttime, or maybe really warm, or adding a sepia tone, or making it black and white to give it a sort of effect. That's what color grading is, and that can really make your video a little bit more interesting as well, visually. And once you've put that all together, you've tweaked all the things to make it look and sound great, added any effects or titles or anything else you need, it's time to export. Now I am going to go into some best practices for exporting in the next section, but right now I just want to mention as well the best setting that I use for exporting my videos for publishing online. And that's using a QuickTime codec. So a codec is basically the file type. And within that codec, or within the QuickTime family, is the H.264 codec. And H.264 is a way that your computer can compress a video file so that it's still high quality, but it's a smaller file size. Great for being able to upload online quickly and process, great for playback on your computer, or just for transferring between your computer and a hard drive. So that's the setting that I use whenever I'm publishing my videos online. So that's sort of a broad overview of what the video editing process looks like. If you have any questions, let me know, and we're going to dive into some of those things in the next few lessons to give you some more best practices.